Dr. Russell Norman.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak in support of this bill about essentially outlawing investor-state disputes clauses in future trade agreements. And I thought perhaps the simplest way to come into this would be to quote at length from The Economist about exactly this issue, which has attracted a lot of attention. The Economist wrote on October 11, 2014, they said, and I quote, "If you wanted to convince the public that international trade agreements are a way to let multinational companies get rich at the expense of ordinary people, this is what you'd do. Give foreign firms a special right to apply to a secretive tribunal of highly paid corporate lawyers for compensation whenever a government passes a law to, say, discourage smoking, protect the environment, or prevent a nuclear catastrophe." Yet that is precisely what thousands of trade and investment treaties have done through a process known as Investor-State Dispute Settlement, or ISDS. That's from The Economist magazine talking about investor-state dispute settlements. They go on to say, ISDS first appeared in bilateral trade agreement between Germany and Pakistan in 1959. The intention was to encourage foreign investment by protecting investors from discrimination or expropriation. But the implementation of this laudable idea has been disastrous. Multinationals, this is The Economist magazine speaking, multinationals have exploited woolly definitions of expropriation to claim compensation for changes in government policy that happen to harm their business. Following the Fukushima disaster in Japan in 2011, for example, the German government decided to shut down its nuclear power industry. Soon after, Vattenfall, a Swedish utility that operates 2 nuclear plants in Germany, demanded compensation of over 5 billion New Zealand dollars under the ISDS clause of a treaty. This claim is still in arbitration. But, as The Economist says, it is just one of a growing number of such cases. In 2012, a record 59 of these cases were started. Last year, there were 56. The highest award so far is for $2.3 billion to Occidental, an oil company, against the government of Ecuador because the government of Ecuador apparently lawfully terminated an oil concession contract. That's from The Economist magazine, hardly renowned for its radical anti-business perspective on trade agreements. And what The Economist magazine and establishment figures all around the world are now doing is stopping progress on these kind of clauses because they are so fundamentally dangerous to democracy and to regulation making by governments. That's why The Economist went to some length to explain the problems and the dangers with ISDS, investor-state disputes clauses, which allow corporations, multinational corporations, to sue governments if governments regulate in a way that costs those companies money. Think about the German nuclear industry. Now, Germany is not renowned for having a Wild West legal structure. Yet Germany decided after the Fukushima disaster it no longer wanted to pursue nuclear power and it would slowly phase nuclear power out. It is now facing an investor-state dispute settlement case of around $5 billion that it may have to pay in order to do that, in order to proceed with that perfectly sensible policy. Australia's facing a case because it wants plain packaging on tobacco, and Philip Morris rightfully says that will cause us harm or damage our business. Well, that's true, it will, but it will save thousands and thousands of lives. South Africa faced similar cases when they tried to tackle apartheid. What the lawyer for, and I think this is really interesting, the lawyer for the nuclear power company Vattenfall, Kai Hober, when he was asked about the case he was taking against the German government on behalf of the nuclear power utility company, he said, "States are complaining about this, but they've signed up to these treaties themselves. If they don't want them, don't sign them." That is the words from the lawyer who is suing the German government because the German government is phasing out nuclear power, a case that could cost them $5 billion. That lawyer is right. If we don't want these, don't sign them, and that's what this legislation does.